You're listening to the Salty Sex Cast with Mariah and friends. Minimize the fear. Expand your awareness.
Hey, babes.
Yo.
I
guess I'm not really a babes, but hey.
Everyone's a babe. I
Yeah.
think every human is a babe because people are amazing. And it's just like, damn, babe. Like, I don't know. Hey, babe. Something like if I call you babe, I have a lot of respect for you. And we're pretty
Okay.
close. Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
wait,
like,
did you just call me babe?
I did. I kind of included you in that, my babes. So, yeah, well, it's Mariah here and Brady, the button boy.
Hey.
We are wrapping up our year of 2022. So if you're a patron, you're actually going to hear this as our last episode of 2022. But if you're a regular listener, you're hearing it as the first episode of 2023. So congratulations. We're just starting off the new year, wrapping up the old year, and having some amazing things that Brady and I want to just talk about. But before we get started.
Well, I think before we get started, I'd like to know something.
Okay, you
if
know
I wanted to hear this in the new year, where would I go?
You beat me to it, Brady.
I know.
Yes, you would go to patreon.com/saltysexcast. And we have a really cool crew over in that community that has supported the podcast financially, that we have some long-term backers that have been here for a long time. Yep. We have our most recent backer. So shout out to Keith. Thank you for being a new patron. We're so excited to get to know you and get to meet you in our next live Q&A coming up. So that'll be in the new year. We like to take the holidays off, but we still want to make sure we're putting out our content, right? So as a patron, you get all these wonderful goodies. One of them being getting a shout out on the podcast. If you're a certain level, you get to choose some of our topics that we do. You get to join us for live Q&A. You get early episodes. So lots of really fun stuff. Sometimes we throw just some surprises at our patrons too, which is always a blast. But Brady.
Yeah.
What do you think has been the highlight of 2022 for you for the podcast?
Oh, geez. Probably to be honest with you, probably the podcast party.
That was rad.
That was
so much fun.
Super cool. And I got you to tear up with my speech.
Oh, fuck you, dude.
Which I didn't know was possible.
It was just really heartfelt knowing, like, when you look at every single person out in the crowd and you're just saying thank you for everything, like, it is not for me in any way, shape, or form, this podcast, right? Yeah. It's really great to let that energy pass through me and share it with others, and one of those people that's just not afraid to talk about things and go to the deep, dark crevices of our, sexual universe. But really, it's because of everybody out there and what they ask for and what they say made a positive impact for them. And so I think that really was just so beautiful. And just knowing that I've had someone I've really trusted along the way who's been there. And so that was just meaningful, Brady, for you.
Thank you.
So I appreciate that. It was really fun. You know what the best, like, surprise that, like, just fell together and looked so good was your corrugated steel 100 that you cut out. It was the negative space 100, and you bent it around that giant fire pit you have out in your backyard. So the flames were, like, in the background of it. Coolest thing ever. We're going to have to do that for 200. I just want you to know now, like, you've committed.
I have to imagine that when you saw me cutting this piece of metal on the ground, you were like, ugh, that's not going to turn out well. I'm sure.
I have judgments, right? Like, I'm not super handy. So I'm like,
yep.
I'm not going to judge super early, but I'm also going to let you know if I don't like it. Like, you're going to know But I was so pleasantly surprised how well it turned out. And it was really fun with all the concrete dicks hidden around the yard. And
Oh yeah, we hit a lot of concrete decks.
yeah, the drinks and the food and the people. Okay. One thing I was so worried about was the weather. I,
Mm-hmm.
it was what, early May?
It
Gosh,
was early May. Might have been. Well, it might have been. Yeah, it was
end of
early May.
May.
End of May.
It was whatever that holiday weekend, Labor Day is.
May. Yep.
Yeah.
In May. So
Yeah. And it competed against your wedding anniversary too. So we had to do it this weekend, not that weekend. And so it just ended up being that holiday weekend, which I was like, oh no, a lot of people are probably going to be out of town, which yeah, it happened. But those who made it really made a sacrifice to be there. And it just was so meaningful for us to celebrate and be able to celebrate with folks who couldn't come and still, sent congratulations and all those things. So super meaningful. But, and so we had those rainstorms all before. I was like, we're going to be in mud or it's going to be raining and cold. Then I was like, we have a fire. We can wear umbrellas, bring umbrellas, wear rain gear, whatever. It's not going to be like a downpour. It's Utah,
Sure.
right? We don't get crazy rain here. But we have a little bit of rain and wind in the morning. And then it just freaking cleared up, blue skies.
And it was really nice.
Gorgeous.
It was like even pretty warm. I don't think we were like jacketed up hardcore.
Yeah, it wasn't cold. It like after the sun went down, it got a little chilly, but that was like the exact time you wanted to be around that giant bonfire.
Yep.
Super fun with the music and the vibe. It was such a cool vibe. And then we cleaned up, and as we were cleaning up after it got dark, like in the very distance, you could see just like flashes of like lightning. And I was
that was so cool.
Well, let's hurry. And like, it was gorgeous. Right. But I was like, I am freaking beat. This was a 10-hour day for me because we set up, we did so much. Right.
Yep.
And
I think you pulled out of the driveway right as the raindrop started to fall.
And then it was a like super hardcore storm, like crazy wind, 45-degree rain, like
I had to go out and like put the stairs up on top of the hot tub cover because the wind kept blowing the hot tub back open.
Yeah. And that's like a really heavy cover you have for
Yeah,
exactly. And so it was insane. And I was like, holy smokes, like the gods have made it so. Like, we had amazing parties. That was a highlight, super big highlight. Thank you for everyone who came, and be on the lookout for when we hit our 200th episode, because we'll be doing the same thing.
And it was so fun. And I meant every word I said. And for everyone who wasn't there, what I said was that Mariah took me from just being somebody who was like accepting to understanding, and like really planted me firmly as an ally to anybody with, non-traditional whatever.
Yeah. There's, and I think that's been a very similar journey with myself in the podcast, like being like, I have no judgments. Like, I want you to express yourself to not just being someone who doesn't withhold judgment, but actually puts energy to support your needs and your human rights, and really understanding a lot of the communities that maybe feel like they have to hide in the shadows or have been even labeled as a shadow society, culture, whatever, like you should hide in the shadows, you belong, like this is like not a positive thing. You shouldn't be out in the open. It's just really interesting to hear more and more. And it's like, fuck, we're just humans who want to be accepted and loved. So, I think that podcast party was really fun. What about your highlight of your year personally? Let's get to know Brady a little bit more.
Geez, personally, I don't know. That's a tough one. The highlight of last year. I mean, outside of the podcast, even?
Yeah. Personal highlight.
That's a tough one. I probably should have put some thought into that question.
Sorry, I just pulled it on you. So
you're good. I'm thinking, I think personally for me this year, I got a little bit more in touch with like myself and my daughter and my wife. And I've started kind of like trying to focus on listening a little better to like what's going on in their world, not just sort of like hearing them when they speak, but like trying to kind of like look at that from their perspective a little bit. And that has been pretty fulfilling.
That's really
to me.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like something that you can't like, it's not like one event, but it's been a shift for you.
Yeah. It's a process for sure. But it's just been like, not just listening to like I'd call my daughter or be talking to her one-on-one and be like, hey, what's what's going on at like school, and how what's your friend circle like, and da 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 da. But actually like sitting down on the ground with her one time, we were like outside playing, and I just like sat down on the ground with her and just had like a conversation. And because we were like sitting, we were like eye level, so it was like I saw the world from her perspective, and then I tried to think like, man, what was it like for me when I was her age, trying to make friends or just like feeling like I fit in at school, and like all the chaotic little things you have to juggle as a kid in school with like, oh, I want to play this certain game at recess, but I also got to do my homework and I'm learning how to do chores. And so like, I was kind of thinking through that, and I was like, man, what a world. So like, I know it sounds kind of weird, but it was just really cool to kind of try to connect with her on a more understanding, like meaningful level.
It's so cool. I did that with my 13-year-old the other day. Yeah. And
how was it?
It is pulling teeth. That kid just is a little shut off. Like, and I finally got to the like bottom of it, because I was like, why don't you talk as much as you used to? And used to be such a goofy kid and like really wanting to get like, you were like a performer, right? Like in elementary school, he's always so funny, but now that he's in middle school, he's just started to kind of get a little quieter.
Are we talking about your middle kid?
No, my oldest.
Okay.
And he kind of came out and said, yeah, he's like, I think I have a little bit of social anxiety. And I was like, are you worried about judgment or saying the wrong thing? And without trying to like get too much or giving him the answer or probing so much he felt like he was on. And then, we're joking around in that conversation too. So we didn't really like pinpoint, but just knowing that he knows that. And then I was like, cool. Like, I want to know, like, I want you to know I can't quite relate to that. I've always been the loud, obnoxious one that needs to shut up instead of the quiet, reserved one that needs to speak up. And so it's been hard for me to relate to his lived experience right now and to understand and have patience for his needs too. And so it was just really important that we had that conversation. But
have you ever felt shy? Have you ever like landed in a situation, you looked around and you're like, oh, what do I do?
Not since I was, I think, okay, this is why I don't publicly sing. Because in third grade, you had to try out for choir. They made you go up to the mic by yourself and sing something. I'm also a little Mormon girl living in California, Southern California. The only songs I know are like church songs, like primary songs. And so she's like, sing a song. I was like, and I was like, I know not everyone here is Mormon, so I'm not going to just start singing that song. She's like, well, just like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. You know how hard that song is and like sound good?
Yeah.
Anyway, so since that moment, I just remember like in the mic and then just running off and crying. That was the last time.
Oh, Mariah, I didn't know that.
Still like burned into my soul of that experience. That's why I will never sing publicly again, because my third grade Mariah was just mortified.
I've been around you when you've like sung Happy Birthday, and it's like you kind of
I mouth it. I usually mouth it, or I kind of like don't really sing it. Yeah. I don't. Yeah, I don't belt. I don't, unless I'm totally by myself or with my like core 5 family, my spouse, my 3 kids. You're probably never going to really just hear me sing unless I'm like super just not paying attention to who's around and just super comfortable. So if you've heard me,
so you do sing out loud, just not around people.
Yeah, I'll sing in the shower all the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's like I think the only time I'm shy And that's not me being shy. That's me being like mortified. I would vomit
It sounds like you were
on
traumatized.
stage. Yeah, yeah. And
So did you want to be
and
a
I
choir?
just don't sound good. Like I'm just not a singer. Like even I guess like, oh, was it my youngest? Maybe my middle son. I was singing like a little lullaby.
You just like
When they were
reached up
an
with his hand in your mouth.
infant, no. And my mother-in-law, who is a trained singer, was like, "Oh,
Terrible.
yeah, I think you're a little tone deaf." But she didn't say it that kindly. She said it a little meaner. And I was like,
Oh,
thanks. So yeah. Anyway, I think that's like as far as being like shy or like unable to like have words or anything. No. No. And I can like strike up a conversation. I think some social situations that I'm like extremely unsure of like the etiquette,
mm-hmm.
I just back up a little bit and try to observe.
You try to
But
learn
it's
the etiquette. Yeah.
yeah, it's really just like what are some of the social norms? I don't want to come in here and like be rude. Like I never want to be rude, like loud and rude, but I am unapologetically myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So I had a similar thing like when I joined the army and finally met with my unit and when I was in the reserves and I showed up to like my first drill where everybody was there and they took us I think we went like paintballing in the woods. But at the end of the day when we were done like training, which was like the paintballing, they built like a campfire and stuff and we were all just kind of hanging around and I was like the new guy and so I just sort of was watching. And one of the NCOs said something to me. It was like, kind of quiet, huh? And I was like, nope, just learning.
just learn it. Yep.
And he kind of gave me a look like, oh, fucking smart. All right. I could dig it. So, but I had to learn the etiquette. I didn't know any of these people or like
The pecking order. Yeah. Like I'm not going to come in and make waves before I understand where the tide is going.
Yeah.
For me to stick to that analogy. Right. Like, so anyways, that's like the only time maybe that people think I'm shy or think it at first, but I am really just observing. It's not because I'm scared to speak up, but it's really because I want to respect the environment
Sure.
and the people around, So the louder I am, the more boisterous I am. Typically, it's because I'm more comfortable in that environment.
No,
So,
makes sense.
like in our
Mhm.
close group of friends, yeah, I'm give no shits because by now you all should know me and know that it comes from a good place. So if I do happen to like talk over someone or, tease someone, it's all coming from you're my people. But yeah.
Well, I think me and Ray are definitely the roasters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
In that like group of close friends that we all hang out with together. Yeah. And sometimes I
And
feel
Ray
like
is a lady.
yeah, Ray is a lady. Yeah, I should say that. Ray.
So
Well, yeah,
those
we'll just
who
call her
don't
Ray.
know our group, yeah, it's pretty great. So
Yeah. So Ray.
quippy, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I get looks from Jamie sometimes, like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you said that." And like, it's like, no, you roast the ones you love. It's the rule. So
Yeah, I think like the more I tease you, the more that I see you as a buddy, as a friend. We're close. Like I have trust with you.
yeah,
That kind of thing.
I have faith that our friendship is strong enough for me to tease you.
Exactly. But I'd say, some of the highlights I think from my eyes for the podcast this past year has, of course, the milestone of hitting 100 episodes. I think that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
80%, I'm probably pulling this out of my ass, but I know it's a huge percentage or like a majority percentage of podcasts don't even hit past the 7th episode. So if folks are thinking of starting a podcast, great, do it. I am all for you. I want folks to find their voice, and this is a great platform to do that. Just understand, like, it takes so much sacrifice and dedication, and this is not a paid hobby.
Yeah,
sure, we have those patrons. Yeah, no, it's a very expensive hobby, and that's why we have, our patrons and other folks that truly, like, all of our money that we get, if we sell shirts or any of our merch, it just goes right back into the podcast, which really makes a big difference. And we can tell when we can get quality things out there because our audience and everything grows. And it's really great to hear, like, we're making a difference for folks. I mean, we were on the top 20 sexual education podcasts in Egypt and other countries like that. Like, that's kind of a big deal, knowing that some of those more closed off regions who have very strict gender roles and ideas about sex, that we can be out there. And again, non-judgmentally, like, I'm not trying to judge anybody. It's really just, I would love to provide some information for you that you can make an educated, confident decision, feel like you have enough to navigate the sexual side of you without shame, without fear, without stigma. I think that's a really big thing that, that's what keeps this passion project going, is because knowing that, each conversation we have can do that and has that potential for a lot of people out there who's looking for that validation, even information too. So 100 episodes was a big milestone. I'm so glad that we really put a lot of effort to celebrate that one. And that was all of my, Brady, you also put in your cash too. Like, that was personally funded for that party.
It was a big deal. You had a professional
open bar.
DJ,
we have a bar. DJ. We had food. We had,
music. Oh, well, I said music.
Yeah.
Yeah. We rented a toilet system so people didn't, because I only have the one bathroom at home. Like, it was a big deal.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't want, like, folks walking through your house kind of thing. So this was on Brady's property, out in Hooper, Utah.
Yeah.
So it was beautiful. It was gorgeous. It was, I think the sunset was just awesome. Super, super fun. Yes, we did get really nice toilet system. That, like, halls, it was on its own trailer and stuff.
It was super convenient.
Yeah. Tons of booze. So it was a good thing. It was super fun. I'm glad that, we were able to do that. Then another milestone we hit quite recently, and that was our 50,000 downloads for podcast. Right. Yeah. So that was super exciting. When we hit 10,000, I think that was a big deal. It was like, okay, like, people are listening, and I remember when Pamela and I were able to celebrate that was really exciting. So then we're at 50,000 now.
So what did you think about, so we've recently received an email about a sponsorship. How did you feel about that? Because to me, that felt like something.
Yeah, I think it's always really exciting to hear when you have certain, like, really well-known companies reach out for sponsorship. And I will be fully transparent with everybody, because this isn't a moneymaker and then I'm just looking for this cash. I am very careful who I even say, yes, give me more information around. And it is, it's got to be a product I will absolutely use and say, yes, this is a great product. I would suggest it to my closest friends, which I feel, like, I'm not going to just do this because I want to sling cash or whatever.
Right.
And then it's got to be something that's really, like, wellness, health, sexual wellness driven, right? Is it going to provide sexual wellness, or is it just sexy content? Right. Which is fine. And that's totally sells. And I love that folks do that. So I've been really picky and actually was like, I'm pretty sure I scared off this brand because I said, hey, nope, this is what we do. And if you want to sponsor us, this is this, and this, and how I would run that. So that's why we don't just have ads in the middle of the podcast. I also don't want to water down our message too much either. I think that's just, I have built trust with my audience and I take that absolutely seriously. And that comes at a very high price. So if someone wants to get through all of that and they think they are a good fit for us, feel free, come talk to me and let's have a conversation. But for the most part, I've said no dozens of times. Let's just say that.
It was one of the things that like you and I were kind of talking about when they first emailed us. And I was like, hey, like this is a concern for me. And we talked about like the baked in version of ads. And I was like, if you're in the middle of talking about something serious, like maybe related to trauma or something like that, it's hard to be like, oh, speaking of trauma, here's this product, So like that was like, because I was like, I mean, I think those are the best kind of ads, especially if you can kind of like me and you would bounce off each other about like that particular product. And
absolutely.
yeah, I love it. But like now's not the time, if you're in the middle of like a serious discussion.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's so valid. And that's how much we respect the message that we're also trying to say too. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It was really exciting to see this very well-known brand come through our inbox. And I was like, actually it wasn't me. You texted me and you were like, blah, blah, blah. And I
was excited.
I hadn't even read through the emails. And so I was just a little oblivious. And I was like, there goes Brady again, not making any sense in texts.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's probably one of my
You're a left fielder a lot of times in text messages. Like here's no context. Here's this image or meme or something. So it's just great. So that's what I thought it was, something again. And then I read our emails. I was like, oh, that's so much more. Makes so much more sense.
I'm gonna have to keep that in mind, like the way that I communicate with people, because I think that might be one of my biggest problems.
Well, I do the same thing. And I'm like, da, 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 da. And then I'm all, oh, hey, this is in relation to this, this, and this. And here's my thought process on why I sent this. Okay, cool. Right. But I like hurry and quickly follow it up. But it's very similar. If I even reply back, I'm like the worst texter. Text messages, I loathe the thought of somebody demanding my attention in that moment. Like, no, no. I'm the boss of my own time. And, so I'll reply to texts when I'm emotionally, mentally ready. And so most of my text messages actually stay unread from sometimes 24, 48 hours. I do that on purpose because if I read it and don't reply, I'm never going to reply again. Like it's out of sight, out of mind. So yeah, it's an interesting concept. I just don't care for someone to have instantaneous access to my mental energy is really it.
That's smart. I think that's really smart. So
my boundary.
I have a friend and he's terrible at texting. He has dyslexia and some other like anxiety issues or whatever. So
okay.
I probably send 50 texts to one of his, but I'm aware and like he's like made it clear to me that if I don't respond, it's not because I don't like you. It's just I have this going on. And I'm like, it's cool. So it's actually become like a notepad for me. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I've had like a dream and it's like I decide to write a joke or I have an idea that I want to share with probably him, I'll text him. And he just never replies. So I always have those texts there that I can go back through and be like, oh, yeah, that was a funny joke. I'm going to write that.
That was a funny joke. That's great. That's great. Yeah. Hey, so I'm noticing your hat and it says Zorg.
Yeah.
Is that like an actual brand or is this in reference to the Fifth Element?
That's the Fifth Element.
Okay. That's what I was thinking.
Here. I can,
which is like my second favorite movie, Jurassic Park, first. Fifth Element, real close second.
Here we go. Let me hook you up.
Taxi service. Oh, I love it. Corbin Dallas.
Yep.
Multi-pass. I recently went to a concert and had a VIP pass. Oh, it's your patches that you can flip from your shirt. Love it.
I made a jacket to anyone who doesn't know.
So when the security guard handed my VIP pass, because you have to wear it around your neck, I was all multi-pass. And then like just a few people snickered and I was like, you're my people. You get me? So that's all I needed.
I had a moment one day. I was messing around this is years ago, but I was in the military at the time, and we were out in the motor pool, and somebody said something. I can't remember what they said, but I just replied with like Inaktugama. And because it was like a cute girl who said something, and Inaktugama means like never without my permission. And it's
Yes,
from
I know exactly what it's
Element.
from. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And she's like, what without your permission? And I was like, oh, you're hot and a nerd. Yes.
And a nerd. I love it. I love it.
It was
That's
pretty
so
funny.
fun.
So you're 100% right when you talk about the podcast being difficult and like podcast never getting past the 7th episode, because you know that I had mine for a short time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it has been a struggle for me to find somebody I can consistently be on with and make content. And I think I made like 7 episodes with one person and 7 episodes with another person. And now I can't find anyone who's like willing to commit to that sort of like, and it's almost like, I think if you could just break that wall and show that you can continually produce content, like your listenership starts to grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like after like 25, 30 episodes of consistent, reliable content, you start getting that audience that wants to come back. And, you know, if folks are just tuning in to, if this is their first episode, these aren't our regular episodes. Like usually we have someone who's an expert in an area or has a lived experience that we want to highlight on the podcast. Like it's really fun to have those interview episodes. Or we have our quickies, which is, you know, really short, condensed information, but it's like quick at you. It's still good. It's still giving you what you need. So this is our like recap. It's also fun to like just show our personality without like having an agenda. I think it's always really fun too. Of course, we'll stick to somewhat of an agenda for, you know, tying up our year. What are we looking most forward to? That kind of thing. But we've had some amazing guests this past year, folks that I, you know, and, you know, either having in studio or meeting on Zoom and never met in person, I would have loved to just chat with for hours and have 10 episodes with. It's so hard to keep it to an hour or under, mostly because life is crazy. And so I couldn't. And I also want to just honor that, you know, when someone sees 2 hours plus on a podcast, it's kind of like, unless you have a long commute or if that's like the only show you tune into, sure. But we've had some really great folks and it's been so fun. And there's a few that really stick out to me. So Zoe Kors, she's the author of Radical Intimacy. And we have an episode 110 titled Radical Intimacy, and just her history and her background and how much effort she's put into, you know, researching radical intimacy and talking about it and giving folks this amazing opportunity to absorb how to be intimate with the world around you and how much we close off, I think was just really, really cool. And she puts it in just a fun, entertaining way. She also has hand tattoos. So I was like, mad respect, lady. Like she was cool. So it was just really fun to have her on. She was one that really stood out to me over the year. How about you jump in with an episode while I kind of...
Well, I feel bad because like my most recent episode that I sat down and like was able to listen to all the way through without like a break. Because usually when I listen to the shows that I'm not a part of, it's like while I'm driving and they're kind of broken up and sometimes I lose the plot when that happens.
Oh, gotcha.
But recently, because of the bad traffic and some weather, I got to listen to Porn Star Perspective all the way through. And that's like, I think that's only been out since like the 21st.
Yeah. It's a pretty recent, decently recent episode.
Yeah. Because porn is always kind of one of those things that like there's a little guilt around because you're not sure if like everybody in the film is being taken care of and like are they, you know, being respected and not like, you know, abused basically, because you hear so many bad things about women being abused going in and out of porn.
That is what you hear. That is what
Yeah.
media latches to, is those few stories, or even,
Right.
folks who were actually trafficked. But when you have reputable companies
Mm-hmm.
and producers and other things, like, folks are having fun. Like,
Well,
it's a job, but they're still like, hey, I am here because I choose to be here.
yeah.
I'm enjoying my line of work.
Yep.
And so that was really cool. Yeah.
Well, so I mean, that's what, like, one of the lessons that I've kind of like learned from listening to everything that we've done, because it's not the only episode we've done on porn, but it's like, you just got to be mindful of where you get your porn, right? It's like, am I buying my beef from a cattle lot where they're using these animals, or am I getting my meat from a reputable dealer? And you can do the same thing with your porn that you can do with your food, is you can think about where you're getting it from.
And there's some great sites out there. And I will say, a majority of the ones that are paid sites, I would be very hard pressed to find out that they aren't reputable, because they're behind a paywall, and you're paying for that labor and emotional labor and other things to make sure everything is done ethically. And so
I'm going to have to find this document. There's a documentary about this BDSM company or this porn company. And what they did was, I think the California National Guard sold a building, and a porn company bought the building because it's a very unique facility, right? So there's lots of different, like, there's like an armory, and then they've got the bathrooms, and so they like use the bathrooms, like all the bathroom stalls have holes cut in them, because sometimes they're filming in there, right? Yeah, exactly. And there was this like really fit Asian male director who he worked on gay BDSM porn. And he had always had these like fantasies of like capturing straight guys from school and tying them up and having his way with them. And now he's directing BDSM porn, and he was like teaching the actors like how to hit each other. So it looks good on camera, but it doesn't actually hurt the actor.
Yeah. I think it's great.
I'm gonna have to find that documentary.
Acting. It's still acting, right? So it's a fascinating world just to see and have someone's perspective on, one that we make either quick judgments, or we're only exposed to the negative sides of it. And so you just don't see the full picture. And so that's something that we really do dedicate a lot of time and energy around the podcast too. I mean, from having, folks on that maybe I don't personally agree with, but still want to show and share that message and the other side of that story, because that information is just information that you get to be exposed to then decide what's best for you. So hopefully, and I don't know if I need to start saying that in every episode, that just because someone's on my podcast doesn't mean I personally buy into what they are offering or their point of view. And so that's actually really important to me, and to stay non-judgmental and just be curious. So as a host, I know I still have my personal bias, and I know sometimes that comes out, especially in these facial expressions. But I think it's also just really important to share more opinions out there in a safe manner, and not a, I'm right, you're wrong manner. Actually, and I love this, and I need to probably use it more often, either on the podcast or just other things. But for episode 102, it's, a sexplanation with Alex Liu. And he actually had a documentary titled A Sexplanation. So I highly recommend everyone go watch that. It is streaming online. But he comes out with, instead of more sex positive, he said he's more sex neutral. So we're sex positive. People are like, we have to expose everybody to this and say be very accurate and give you all the information you need. Well, we always should be accurate with information we're sharing. But as far as like sex education in schools and everything, like, exposure and all of this, and we should all be pleasure aware and everything. And it was like, I think I'm pulling it back, and instead of saying more sex positivity, I'm more sex neutral. And that gave space for someone's experience who maybe can feel too exposed too quickly to some of this stuff, right? When it's been shut off for so long, or it's just something that they're not really in tune to. And then we're like, get your vibrators. Everyone should have a vibrator. Orgasms for everyone. Like, it can be a little overwhelming. So.
One thing I've always been impressed about you, and you say this sometimes, is you don't yuck people's yums.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought, it's fun. First off, that sounds hilarious, but it's like a legitimate thing, because like I've like one of the things that was like a big difference between you and Pamela when we started was that Pamela loves anal. Like I made a comment about anal in a quickie, and she like texted me, was like, hey, you're not right. Some people love anal. I love anal. And I was like, oh, okay, my bad. But and I think my message was mostly like, hey, just be prepared. Like there's going to be some work involved in making that work.
Yeah. And it's not what porn shows.
Yeah. And I think you've always been really good about that. And I have to admit, there have been times where I've checked out in the middle of recording because people started talking about stuff where I was like, I don't believe any of that. And none of that's real. But okay. Yeah. So I've sort of kind of like checked out in the middle of recording, but fortunately I'm not, usually I'm not in front of the camera or whatever, but I've never like sat here and wanted to like disparage them for having that thought. And like, if, rubbing your body with crystals or something makes you feel more empowered sexually, then cool. Like, good for you.
Yeah.
I personally don't think that rocks work like that, but.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of my coach training. So being a nationally board certified health and wellness coach, I've had to go through training, months and months with hours and hours of practice, sit for an exam. I have a, governing board that checks that I take responsibility for what I've committed to as a coach. And so I take it very seriously. And I do have a lot of issues with some folks calling themselves coaches or got their certification with an online program, which maybe they got some interview and how to be an expert interview tips, and maybe like more aware of how you interview folks in a coaching session. But there's only two governing boards that I respect. So if you're either a NBWIC, National Board for Health and Wellness Coach certified coach, or if you're an ICF certified coach. So that is what I will say, my very biased, because I know those are, very committed to coaching. Anyway, about that and about that training is it is not about me. It is purely about the person I'm talking to. I keep all of my bias out of it. And so even when I do say something on the podcast, I always try to say, okay, from my point, my very biased opinion, or, for me, it definitely is very different for that. And so I always try to, at least, even if I'm going to say something that does have judgment or personal experience or something, that it is just coming from me. And that actually makes it really easy to interview folks that I don't agree with their point of view personally in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. Because I've been in plenty of coaching sessions where I'm like, okay, that's what you committed to. You think you're going to, do 180 minutes of exercise every day, twice a day. And, you haven't exercised in 30 years. Like, okay, like there's times that I'm like, I cannot put my judgment on what someone is excited for. And so I'm careful with that. Obviously, as a coach, you'd question them like, tell me what that 180 minutes is going to provide. What does that look like for you? And then it's very different in like a coaching session. And then you finally get to the bottom of like them realizing and having those realizations that, oh, maybe that's overcommitting for myself.
A little high.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just, let's go. Let's try it for a week. And I want you to pay attention to what comes up for you when you're trying this new goal out, and let's talk about it next time or whatever it is. But
so I'm curious, like, what are you looking forward to next year? Because since we've started doing quickies, I've really enjoyed them, and I don't think to sit down often enough, I think, to work on them, because I need a little bit of a prompt, something to talk about. Because like you have a very cool, you have your board certified coach, right? And so I'm not board certified at anything, but I also kind of subscribe to the Mark Twain says, don't let school get in the way of a good education. And so I'm not dumb, but sometimes I need to be kind of prompted on like, what do people want to hear from me in a quickie?
Yeah.
And so like we recently talked about my vasectomy because of Roe v. Wade and everything, right? So like, what are you, because I think the quickie was a really cool way for you to kind of continue to reach out and sort of have that passion for the ongoing episodes. And I like them. I like participating in them. And that was a new invention for you. Do you have anything that you're thinking about? Like, how are we going to change things?
Like, how are we going to continue to keep things fresh
and grow? Yeah. Do you have anything in mind for that, or what are you
I've
looking
been
forward to
noticing
next year?
I mean, like, these are like aesthetic surface things. I think our message is there. For one, I'd love to become a better speaker and maybe get a little bit of my filler words and work intentionally on that. I know I like to talk. I know I'm decently articulate. So I think that just is something that I want to work on. Aesthetic level is those filler words and how I present information. And then another one is maybe a new intro and even our new video, like how we're editing those videos. So YouTube aesthetics. So more things like that, I think just can kind of go a long way.
Well, I think I have a question for our audience. What if we held an intro contest?
Oh, like a podcast intro, like they record what our intro should be for the podcast and send it in. And
the winner gets whatever. Well, I mean, we'd have to come up with it, but I think, what if we did a contest? I mean, I know that our listeners are creative. Or they have a friend that'll help them. You know what I mean? Because like,
in the podcast community too, brilliant people out there.
Yeah. I wonder, I think we should have a contest. I think at our 200 anniversary or 200 episode party, the new intro designer gets a free invite.
Okay.
And VIP status at the party, whatever that means. And then,
we will make sure it's VIP. We will make sure there's a VIP level.
They can sit in the hot tub and just survey the party from there. And I'll bring them drinks.
You should build a throne.
I'll build a throne. Yeah. I mean, what do you think about that?
Like a Tiger King.
Oh yeah.
Epic throne like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes. So if someone who's listening wants to help us with a new intro, really just making sure folks understand our message before they even get into the episode. So right at the beginning. And if you don't want to have your voice, if you just want to send us like words through email, let's do that. Let's have March 31st be the deadline. 31st. Yeah.
What about a time limit on it? We want a 30-second intro?
No.
50 seconds?
I think 10 to 30 seconds.
10 to 30.
5 to 30 seconds in length.
Minimum of 5, maximum of 25.
Ta-da.
Yeah. Make it
Music
sassy
is
and
optional for sure, but it does need to be royalty free so we can use it on the podcast. Sweet. I'm excited.
I like
Okay.
that idea.
All
Yeah.
right. Let's get a new intro. Really, we just want, the goal is to let folks know what the Salty Sex Cast is about when they are first hearing this intro.
Yeah.
And also that sense of like,
Flirtiness.
yes, but it doesn't have to be. But like friendly, welcoming, we keep fear and stigma out of it, that kind of thing. So
The Salty Sex Cast, where everybody's perversions are accepted.
you are not the winner of the
I am
intro.
not the winner. Damn it. Because I said perversions?
No, I think it's
Oh, okay.
fine. I want folks to really just think about it. I think it'd be really fun. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. So the new year, I think just a little bit of an upgrade. I think we're due for one. Where we're at, we have been doing this since October of 2019. So 2023, we'll be turning 4.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. We are pre-pandemic podcast.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a big, that I feel like it's an award in itself.
Yeah. I wonder how many podcasts kind of folded up around the pandemic.
Either closed doors or started because of it, because there really wasn't much to do besides let me hit record and talk about how shitty life is right now, right? Not that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it was a thing that like a lot of us wanted to do. We had this pent up stuff, and that was a great way to still communicate with the world around you during the pandemic. Cool. Yeah, because I remember hearing folks during the pandemic, other podcasters saying like podcast equipment was so hard to come by, sold out, back ordered, all sorts of things. So I just really grateful for when we started, and I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it and run with it and just appreciate it. But
I love our audiences. I love our guests. Like you can tell when you talk to our guests that they're like, oh, I like this. And they like your mission. And I like it's obvious to me when you hear somebody talking to you. Like when a lot of people don't know this, maybe it's a little behind the scenes, but when people come in and they sit down in the chairs, turn on the microphones, let them put a headset, we take a minute to warm up, and you can see a lot of people are kind of looking at you like, oh, celebrity, and then they kind of relax and they get used to hearing their own voice, and then there's this kind of like you can see this like, yeah, I'm here to share a positive message about something I'm passionate about that just happens to be related to sex.
Yeah.
And I love seeing that. So it's been really fun.
It can be really nerve-wracking being in studio, having cameras and microphones in your face. And I think there's also something that's very brave for a lot of people sharing that intimate information, because you actually don't know who's on the other side, who's listening. Like this could be somebody who could potentially share this information and cause me harm. Or I'm talking to the people who are so excited to hear it, have been craving for validation, who are wanting to learn more and are ready to learn more when they push play. And so that's also really exciting. And then there's other folks that are like, yeah, that's how I live my life. And it's great to hear someone else talking about it and just, bringing to light something that most society either says is wrong or doesn't like to talk about. And so, love all of our listeners. It's so cool to get to know a lot of our listeners and why they pushed play, why they keep pushing play and keep coming back and subscribing. And I see you YouTube subscribers. I appreciate you. So if you're a new or even just a YouTube subscriber, like that goes a long way. And I really, really appreciate that, because our other platforms, we don't get notifications like, hey, so-and-so subscribed to your show or anything. So it's a little bit removed. I think we get the numbers at the end, but we don't get to know who you are or see a screen name. But YouTube, we do, and we get to see comments and likes and other things. And so that's always just really, really cool because I feel like I'm just more connected to our YouTube audience. Plus it's visual, and as humans, we're very visual.
Yeah.
So it's been cool.
So there's the really famous podcast on Spotify that
Yes.
big deal, and they remodified their platform so that he could put his videos up there. Do we have video on Spotify?
It's a hop and a skip to get to it, but what it is you upload your video and then it takes the audio from your video and uses that as the audio version of your podcast.
Okay.
So I've always been so hesitant to do it because I was really worried it was going to water down our quality.
That makes sense.
So that could be something I might also experiment this year. It's hard. You want to just tweak a couple of things or one thing at a time when you're doing a podcast because you don't know what's going to change.
Yeah.
We lost about half our listenership when we went from a weekly show to then a bi-weekly show.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we're going back when we're weekly, we just have our long form interview or hour long 1 week, and then the next week it's our quickie. So it is still like not the exact same. We're slowly rebuilding our listenership, but it is interesting. And a lot of those platforms actually are used to weekly shows. So you come up on the feed when you're a weekly show. So like if I'm checking in and I'm like, oh, I don't see, Salty Sex Cast, I'm actually forgetting about them. So that's why it's so important to subscribe. So then you get those reminders like, oh, we have a new episode out. And then you see it come up on your feed on any of those platforms. So it just means the world to us when you subscribe and you come back and you share and talk about like what was meaningful. I love getting those emails, and I reply to every single one of those emails that we get for feedback for the show. And so that's something that I don't want to be so removed from my audience that I'm paying someone else to do all this, right?
Yeah.
Social media is a totally different story. I do have social media helpers, some amazing little social media helpers, because social media is so constant. And if I use my energy and effort for social media, you're going to not get a quality podcast from me. Because you know what also is happening next year, Brady?
What?
I'm starting another master's degree. So I'm starting in January. I know, right? It'll be my second master's degree. I'm teaching so I'm teaching one course of human sexuality at a local university. I'm still working a 40-hour job. I have a new intern for my health and wellness coaching. So I have an intern that I'll be supporting and then we'll be coaching, so that I'll be moderating coaching.
Plus you're running a house.
Yeah. And I still have a full caseload of private coaching clients that I meet weekly. And so plus my 3 kids and my spouse. Is that everything? And I keep a full social calendar.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a recluse. I'm out there. I'm hanging out with friends.
Throwing parties.
So yeah, it's really important to me to connect with other people physically, like meeting up, spending time in their space, their social space, their energy space, and not just online all the day, because I do work virtually. So my 40-hour week job is virtual. So yeah, it is. Life gets crazy. Oh, and the podcast. Oh, and that other thing too.
Yep.
So that is a lot. I mean, it's 80-hour weeks, and it's something that, again, I am very passionate about this, and that's why I do this. And continuing education is really important to me, and sharing all of that stuff in health and wellness is really important to me. And that is exactly why I started this podcast, was because I am a certified health education specialist. Mm-hmm. And I was so frustrated by the lack of good, fun, positive, like sex education content out there. And so that's why I was like, this podcast is going to be like, it's a great way to reach folks, not understanding how much of a change I was going to make. And then, you know, finding Pamela as my co-host and having her experience, being able to share that, and just, you know, building that experience, I think was really cool too. But yeah, knew nothing about podcasting when I hit play, when I hit record.
Yeah.
Slap shit together.
Look at you now. So one thing I'd be curious about is if there's anybody out there listening that has something they'd like to hear from us in the next year. And they could email us, saltysexcast@gmail.com. They can interact with us through the website, which is saltysexcast.com, right?
Yep. Super easy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Instagram is blowing up, right? Because you keep putting pictures of your butt up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. That's exactly why I'm a Pixar mom. But and but I don't run my social media content too much as far as like the creation, but I still am reading and replying to those comments and the messages and everything there too. So as far as like scheduling and posting content, that is someone else.
Have you figured out who I am on there when I comment?
Yeah. Okay, I know who you are. Right, I didn't know. Yeah. I was like, who's this weirdo being creepy? I'm just kidding.
Me. That's me. No, that's a valid explanation. So I do send you memes that I probably generally wouldn't send most of my friends, because I know they might end up on the Instagram. And when I do send them and they do pop up on the Instagram, it's like a celebration in my life. I'm like,
it's a little validation that you picked a good one, Brady. That's it. Yep. Brady speaks through memes. So if anyone wants to know Brady's love language, it is memes. Yes, absolutely. Love it. But we're coming up on an hour. What else is important to just let our audience know, Brady? I mean, it's a celebration for 2022, where we're headed in 2023.
I think what's important for everybody to know is that the message is like, this is a process and not an event. This is they're just like, I mean, I remember when you first told me what the podcast was going to be, I was like, man, there's only so many episodes you can do about that. Boy, was I fucking wrong.
Boy, did that change, right? It's almost like, gosh. And, and there's times that I'll get someone reaching out in our inbox saying, hey, I have a guest for you. And I'm like, wow, this sounds a lot like someone else we've already had. And there's always that moment that I'm like, no, we've already had someone come on and talk about X and X, right? But everybody has their different perspective. And so if we have had similar topics, but different guests, it's because I honor that experience and what they bring in. Yeah. And, we've had lots of doctors and authors and other health coaches or certified coaches on here, because folks look at things so differently. So it's super fun. So I could round up 30 polyamorous folks right now and have 30 very different episodes on polyamory, right? That's why there's whole podcast shows around polyamory, because you can talk about so many things, right? Yeah. So, and there's always that message that I feel like it comes down to: be respectful, know your needs, and communicate clearly. Like, if you can do those three things, your sexual wellness is going to be through the roof. Like, it's going to be so different. So I feel like the fundamentals really stay the same no matter who I'm talking to. So I don't know, if you had to put like the underlying, what to adjust, what to put effort in to have a good, healthy sex life, what would be a couple of those, like, in the nutshell?
Oh, I mean, I kind of think you almost nailed it right on the head, but it's like, listen and communicate. Yeah. Like, you can't be quiet. I mean, so I follow this funny group of, people. I'll just say people. Most of them I think identify as female, but I follow this funny group of people on Twitter, and like one of the things that I never thought about when sexting or whatever, but they like audio. And guys tend to not use audio in their videos.
I can attest to that. Absolutely. There's times that I've pushed play on a video, a naughty video online, and then it's had like music or something, and I was like out like immediately. Even if the content is like totally this is my typical search, whatever, and I'm like, ugh, gross.
Yeah, but they're quiet.
Then there's other times
like whispering.
Or that we play porn while my spouse and I are being intimate, and like if I get flipped around or whatever, and now I don't have eyes on the TV, it doesn't matter. It's the soundtrack most of the time. Mm-hmm. Yes. So there's some amazing actual like porn audio podcasts out there that if you just need a new medium to mix things up or to have fun, go do some searchies. Like it's fun. It's fun.
I'm gonna start an OnlyFans where I just moan.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it can't be fake though.
Oh yeah, no, of course I would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would charge less for the fakes.
Yeah. No, what you should do is say, you pay me, I'll send you a video, or not a video, an audio. You tell me if it's real or fake. And if you're right, I'll refund you the money.
Ooh, that's a fun game.
Like, so it's this roulette game. Like, that'd be so fun.
We're going to have to play this game. The next time we do Patreon
live Q&A,
we should play the game where it's like porn star or giving birth.
Of the sounds?
No, the facial expressions.
Oh, okay.
So you show like a picture of a woman who's like, making a face, and you're like, porn or giving birth.
That's so great. I think my personal face is birth was like the easiest thing for me. Like epidural, whatever. I was like, cool. Hey, there's a child.
Look,
but other times I'm sure my face is quite interesting. Well, when I got my nipples pierced, I had someone record my facial expressions.
Porn star or nipple pierced?
What?
Porn star or nipple pierced?
Right.
We could play that game.
And it's on our social media. And so it's just my face, and it was like pain or pleasure. So folks had to decide if I was in pain or pleasure. It was definitely pain, everyone. Definitely pain. The face looks like it's probably my O face, though. It is a very like I had to like frame by frame make sure, because another one I'm like, and I'm like, fuck. It's a searing shot through your body pain, but it's so quick. Like it is like millisecond. You're like, oh, okay, totally fine. But that just instantaneous. You're like, oh God, okay, we're good. Like, I don't know.
When Mia was fooling around with us or living with us, and Jamie and I went and fooled around with her one time, and somehow or another we accidentally pulled her dermals out off her collarbone.
Ouch. Yeah.
And she didn't notice them coming out, but then she went to go get them replaced. The tattoo or the piercer was like, well, now I know what your O face looks like.
Nice.
So
yeah. The piercer I went to was really great. But he kept saying, like, talk, and he kept asking me questions, and I was very annoyed. Like, that is actually the time I don't talk, when I'm sick, tired, or annoyed, like, or obviously in pain. So when I get a tattoo, dead silent. Don't talk to me.
Really?
I won't talk to you. If I'm at the doctor's office, dead silent, unless I'm actually saying some stupid joke like, how's the snow down there? Like just something dumb. Like I always say things so awkwardly when I'm getting laser hair removal right now down there.
You're getting laser?
I am. It's
how's that
going?
Okay.
It's feeling it's a good little tender, but it's not like it's so quick again. Like it's zap, 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 right? Like it's just like these quick little rubber band snaps, but there's a couple little areas that you're like, ooh, I felt that one real good. I'm sure it's just like getting waxed, right? like the same type of pain level. But um
I've started using numbing cream.
yeah, you were saying that.
Yep.
And I was like, I wonder if that would hurt or help with a laser and having moisture on the surface. So I want to
So
be very careful. And it's so quick. It's 5 minutes, the whole area. And so I probably less, honestly. It's more longer because I make dumb jokes as I am moving in different positions.
Well, I
The
talked about
worst
that with my
one, I will
vasectomy.
tell you, I feel so vulnerable hugging my knees on the side, like so fetal position and lifting up a cheek. Like I don't
Oh
like
yeah.
that. I'm like, oh my God, you're like face to face. Like my booty hole. Anyway, so of course I make and the first time I did that, I was like, I feel so vulnerable and like really, really loud. Yeah, so I just see it, if I am talking in those moments, it's usually just really weird, awkward jokes.
Well, I told this story during my vasectomy. I was making jokes.
Yeah, and they were like,
Yep.
"Don't laugh. You can't laugh. Don't make
Yep.
her
The
doctor
doctor
laugh."
got mad. The
Mhm.
doctor got mad. The nurse kept laughing.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great. Yeah, I don't take life too seriously. I have lots of fun, but even when we do have serious content, I think it's just important to have some humor in your life. And
Sorry.
okay, my watch is talking to me.
Oh,
Apparently I said something. I don't know, I feel like I just got in trouble. I yelled at. I was like, I'm sorry. Anyway, did you hear it on the mic? Did it pick it up? Okay, yeah.
Usually
I think
I'm
it's
the one who has my phone problem.
right. Well, my watch is like, I never talk to my watch, so whatever. Apple people, man.
Yeah. They're the worst.
All right. I'm sure folks have fallen far off.
Yeah, we're not talking about sex anymore, so they're not listening.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else to say to our listeners?
Thanks.
Truly.
It's like it if we weren't seeing the numbers that we saw, we probably wouldn't keep doing it. And I really enjoy doing it. Like even the episodes I'm not a part of, I try to listen to as often as I can. And it's thank you. Thanks for like giving us a reason to keep doing it.
I think that's the biggest thing. Y'all give us a reason, and it's meaningful. It's so meaningful, and like the hardest way to verbally express. So thank you, everyone. If you want to come hang out with us, feel free to hit us up on Patreon. If you want to just make our day, subscribe on YouTube, give us a comment on YouTube, give us an Apple review. Those ones are always so fun to see and everything. I think it's just anytime we get that, folks are listening and they care.
And all that stuff helps share the message too, because it impacts the algorithm.
Absolutely. It really does. And it's long past ego, right? This is not an ego-driven podcast. Or it'd make it all about me.
I think if it was
but
ego,
shut up, Brady. It's about me. Shh.
It is.
I'm just kidding. It's not.
Yeah, it's all about. But I think if it was ego driven, you wouldn't still be doing it.
No, I would have been frustrated that I wasn't a millionaire with a billion downloads and next to a bunch of other people who
some sort of presidential award.
Exactly. Like we are still homegrown podcast for the homegrown folks that we reach out to.
Yep.
And I love you all. I love you, Brady, for putting up with me and all the things that I ask for. And it's just so nice to have a sounding board and someone to feedback. And so that is why you are Brady the button boy. He pushes the buttons when we're in studio. He pushes my buttons when we're not in studio. And you're an amazing person. So thanks
Thank you. I love you too. Thank you so much.
Squish.
Squish.
All right, folks. We love y'all. Maybe we'll see you on social media, in our inbox or some other, but we want to wish you a very happy 2023 new year and hope you have an amazing sex-filled limited fear, stigma, and anything else that's going to hold you back year.
Yeah. Kiss a lot of people on New Year's.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Salty Sex Cast. Ready for round 2? Find us on Facebook.